Dear learners, in this session, we are going to discuss about management development. In this video, you will be able to understand the significance of management development and the management development process, methods of management development, and needs and benefits of management development, and the role of succession planning. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in this session. So what is management development? Management development is a long-term development process, and it is actually when a kind of training. So management development simply means that training received for those who currently are or who are about to become managers. So whoever is performing the role of managers have to undergo this management development process, or it is a training program in order to grow up in their career. So that is the intention, that is the purpose of management development programs. And management development programs or management development is a long-term development process as compared to workers training. So this will not gain any worker an immediate progress. So it is actually looked as a long-term development process, and an organization can undertake a management development program for various purposes, like enhancing the manager's job performance, or executing management succession planning, and offering opportunities for the individual's career planning and progress. So these are some of the various objectives for using management development programs by organizations. The end result of any management development program is the enrichment of the competencies of the managers for accomplishing the organizational goals and the individual goals also. So that is management development. So now we'll just discuss about what is the significance of management development. And the organizations, it requires management development for the following reasons. So here the organization should be updated, and it should be aware of the latest and what is the best managerial practices which are followed in the other organizations. So through management development program, the organization can become aware of what is the latest and what is the best managerial practices. And this also will make us to learn about better leadership qualities or the leadership behavior by improving the manager's leadership styles, their communication styles, the motivational skills, and the commitment level, how to enhance the commitment level of the employees. So all those qualities and abilities can be enhanced by this management development programs. And it also helps the managers in prioritizing and optimizing the resources of the organization so as to achieve our goals effectively. And it also ensure, or it also makes sure that the attitudes, values, and beliefs of the managers matches the core value of the organization and the strategy of the organization. So that is very, very important, because it needs to sync both the individual values like the attitudes, values, and beliefs of the managerial level workers should sync with the core values and the strategy of the organization. So through this MDP or management development programs, we can be able to get aligned the individual attitudes and beliefs will get aligned with the organizational strategies. And it also assess and develop the skills of the managers systematically, and they can attract, develop and retain the talented employees of the organization. So this is another usefulness of management development. So it also assists the managers to build on their strengths and work on their weaknesses in order to come out and in order to make their career aspirations successfully. In order to make their career aspirations successfully, he can just point out, or he can actually weigh their strengths and weaknesses through this management development programs. And it also helps the managers to cope with the rapidly changing and complex business environment. So what is happening in the current business environment? So he might be aware of the complex situations which are prevailing in the business environment, and to keep in place a proper management succession plan. So management succession plan can also be developed if they are relying on the management development programs, and it also helps the managers to understand and share the corporate philosophy, their mission and values of the business. So see, these are some of the important points that management development have, and hence it is a very important tool that the organizations need to use in order to develop their managerial employees. Next, we'll be seeing about what are the different steps involved in the management development process. So here, management development process in most of the cases, it is seen to be a need-based and target-oriented management development program. So that is very essential for every organization, and it should be a need-based and target-oriented. So these are some of the steps that are followed in the management development process. The first step is assessing the company's strategic needs. So that is the first step in the management development process. So here, for example, the business strategies like new product development, market expansion, mergers and acquisitions, a strategic response to competitors' actions, and introduction of a new technology. So all these are some of the strategic decisions or the business strategies that organization usually have. So if they want, so since the organizations now they are having these strategies to be implemented at any point of time in future, they may require, the organizations may require competencies and skills needed by the managers to implement such sort of strategic decisions in their organizations. So since this organization or the business environment is having a complex environment, and it is a dynamic, highly dynamic environment. So these kinds of management development programs will definitely help the managers to undergo or to implement such strategies quickly inside their organizations, and hence assessing the company's strategic needs is the first step. If a company wants to go for any strategic change, then they have to plan for such management development programs in order to make the managers to understand the complexities and to understand how the environment will be in future. So that is the first step in the management development process. And this is the second stage in the management development process, evaluating the skills and competencies of the managers. So here in this stage, the competency levels and the skill gap of managers are usually assessed with the help of performance evaluation techniques. So in this stage, the main thing is we have to evaluate what is the competency that managers are having and what is the skill gap. So what is required. So usually the skill gaps found in managers normally forms the basis for framing the management development programs. So only after this step they can just find out what is the competency that are required by the managers by identifying the skill gaps. And the third stage is evolving strategies for the development of managers. So after having identified the skill gap of the managers, they have to go for what are all the strategies that we can make use of for the development of managers. So that is the final phase. So organization decides how it should proceed with the process of developing the managers. So here in this management development programs, we are having two different types of methods like training offered to the managers. That is actually divided into two different types, one which is on the job training and the other one is off the job training. So what is the strategy that the company or the organizations can make use of for the development of managers? So whether it is on the job training or off the job training, so the organizations, it has to decide what kind of training is required for the managers, and by identifying what is the strategic change that the organization is going to undergo. So these are the three different steps that are followed in the management development process. And in the next topic, we are going to just discuss about different methods of management development. And here we are having basically two different methods. One is on the job training method and off the job training method. But this management development programs usually comprises of even both on the job and off the job. These are some of the methods that are used for management development. So first one is job rotation, internship, programmed learning, simulation method, laboratory training, case study, lecture, role playing, business games, mentoring, coaching, executive orientation, in-house development center, executive coaches, university programs, action learning, in-basket training, and finally behavior modeling. These are some of the usual methods that organizations are now following or now using for the management development. We'll see one by one what are all the methods, what is its significance. Mentoring is the first thing that we are going to discuss under management development program. Mentoring, it refers to the teaching by an intelligent and trusted guide and advisor. In recent times, it has emerged as an important technique to develop future managers. It is a one-to-one teaching learning process, and it also aims at enhancing the personal and professional competencies of trainees through the process of advising and coaching. It concentrates on those skills that help the recipients to work to their highest potential and achieve career advancement. Mentors may or may not be from the same organization, but should be experienced, competent, and mature. In the course of mentoring, mentors provide coaching, counseling, and challenging assignments, besides offering personal support and encouragement. They also safeguard the rights and interests of the trainee managers. And as a recent phenomenon, we are also having another concept called reverse mentoring. So reverse mentoring, it refers to a process where senior managers tend to learn from the junior managers or the younger ones. So when the new employees are knowledgeable and the senior managers require such knowledge for prolonging their career, the latter may choose reverse mentoring. So this is actually a few organizations, they have introduced this reverse mentoring in their organizations. So this is with respect to mentoring. Next goes with business games. The primary goal of business game is to ensure the involvement of the trainees in the learning process. In the business games technique, the trainees form teams and assume managerial roles in two or more imaginary but rival companies. These teams operate in a realistic but simulated situation and compete against one another by manipulating the controllable variables like price, product volumes, advertising cost, and so on. So this is a kind of another program or another development program for managers, which is business games. And the next concept is coaching. So here coaching refers to teaching and supervising someone. So coaching can take place in the organization both formally or informally. The trainees would learn immensely out of the experience or expertise of the coach. One of the purposes of coaching is to make the trainees fit to eventually replace the senior managers in those positions. So that is a process called coaching. And the next one is behavior modeling. So here under this method, managers learn by imitating the behavior of others. It is considered to be an ideal method for acquiring relevant skills and knowledge from others. Behavior modeling can be used to improve the skills of managers in performance management, grievance handling, conflict resolution, overcoming the employees' resistance to changes, tackling health and safety issues. Here the trainees are first introduced to the correct way of performing a task. Then they are encouraged to do the work in the same manner. Finally, a review is carried out and feedback is provided to them. This management development technique today is an extensively used, well-researched and very much appreciated psychologically based training intervention. And the next method is in-basket training. In-basket, it refers to a wood or a metal container placed on the manager's desk to hold their incoming material. In-basket training is a development technique which educates the trainees about the need for and techniques of prioritizing the situations that await their responses. The trainees in the in-basket method are first given background information about the simulated company, its products, the personnel working in the organization, and various memoranda, requests, and all data pertaining to the firm. So that is given to the trainees. So here these are the background information about a simulated company. It is not a real thing. which is a simulated company. So the trainee has to understand all this. They have to take notes and they have to delegate tasks and they have to prepare memos within a specified amount of time. So this method is called as an in-basket method in management development program. Then goes with action learning. It is another method. So it is also a development technique that allows trainee managers to work on the problems of some other departments and not on those of their own department. So here on a full-time basis, a group of trainees, they will analyze the real world problems of a department, another department, and they have to make recommendations. So this is actually a kind of training which is called as action learning. So here this method helps the organization to improve their in-house transfers and promotions of the managers. So we have several global organizations like Samsung and General Electric. They are using action learning to develop their managers. And another one is university-based programs. So in this method, the managers, they seek to develop manage. And the next one is university-based programs. In this method, the managers seek to develop knowledge by joining the programs offered by the universities, colleges, and any centers of excellence like the IIMs and IITs. Certainly, educational institutions, they play an important role in training management executives in India. And for instance, the IIMs are offering the management development programs. And so this is one sort of technique that organizations can make use of, which is university-based program. And the next one is executive coaches. So this executive coaching is gaining acceptance nowadays as a very important management development technique for training the managers. And through this executive coaching, the manager can improve his leadership skills. He can gain new perspectives and reach maximum potential. So executive coaching is also a very acknowledged method, and it is a very important element that every managers require. So usually executive coaching focuses on 3 features, namely strategy, organizational change, and behavioral coaching. And the next method is in-house development centers. So this in-house development center is also known as corporate universities. So it is an emerging development program. So it is an emerging development technique, and large companies, large organizations, they are having their own in-house development centers to develop the required skills and knowledge among its employees. And it is actually a technique given, or it is a method of training given for the future managers, like practical training courses, so that they can enhance their managerial competencies. And in-house development centers usually makes available the courses and programs that exactly support the management development requirements of the organization. So since these in-house development centers are associated with the organizations, they know what sort of skills are developed and that should be developed for the managers. So here this is another method, and another method of MDP is executive orientation program. So this executive orientation is the technique adopted by an organization to assist its new managers in learning the firm's structure, the organization structure, the culture and practices quickly so that they can begin to contribute to the organization as soon as possible. So this kind of executive orientation training is normally given to fresher managers, those who have entered into the organization and who doesn't know anything more than the other managers about the organization culture, their practices, and hence this executive orientation program is a very useful method that is offered to the fresh managers uh, to know about the organization culture and the organization practices. So far we have discussed about different methods of management development programs. And this is the part that organizations have to undergo an evaluation of the development programs. So every development program costs an organization in terms of resources and time. So naturally, every organization would tend to know about the worth of its development programs. So here we are having some measures that are used by the organizations in order to judge or evaluate which development program is worth it, and so these are some of the factors that organizations has to look into while evaluating the programs, the management development programs. So the first factor is proving. So it is actually an evaluation taken by the organization to know whether the development program created the desired impact. Similarly, it will also help them to decide whether it is worth continuing the program in the future. So that is the first aspect. So whether the management development program has created a desired impact and whether it is worth continuing the program in the future. And the second aspect is controlling. So it refers to ensuring that the development programs are conducted according to the predetermined specifications. So here a quantitative rating scores can also be used for measuring the comparative performance of the trainees. So in this way we can able to measure what is the level of reach to all the candidates or all the trainees. So that is called as controlling aspect. And the next one is improving. So it refers to the continuous enhancement of the tools and techniques used in the development programs. So say for example, the course content has to be updated, the infrastructure arrangements, the training process, all should be evaluated with the help of participants, and their opinions may also be used for further making improvements in the program structure and design. So this improving aspect should also be evaluated by the organizations. And the next one is learning. It means measuring the actual quantity and quality of learning taking place among the participants. So a kind of formal assessment of participants may be done in the form of examination, and it may also be in the form of project works to measure the efficiency of the development programs. So these are several issues involved in evaluation, especially with regard to a development program. So these are some of the aspects that organizations need to take care of. Then we are going to discuss about management succession planning. So a change in executive leadership at some point of time is unavoidable for an organization, and hence the organization has to be prepared for the future change that may happen at any time. So succession planning is actually a process that every organization will be undergoing. So through which the organization can plan and appoint top level executives. So it usually requires suitable managers to fill the vacancies caused by retirement, promotion, death, resignation, and transfer of the existing managers. The concept of succession planning has gathered momentum in Indian companies nowadays, and many top companies they have charted out systematic plan for identifying and grooming the talents which would eventually take over the top positions in the company. So, for instance, a few years back, L&T of one of the India's leading engineering companies declared the top 10% of its executives as stars and developed fast track career plans for them. So we'll now discuss about what are the different what is the need for succession planning. So in a globalized economy, the scarcity of people qualified for important leadership positions has become one of the foremost challenge facing the management today. So companies are having an acute shortage of talents, especially at the top levels of the management. And we have demand for able and experienced managers, and this always exceeds their supply. So we'll just see what is the need for succession planning and what are all the factors which stresses on the need for succession planning. So the first aspect is growth of organizations. A typically growing organization will require additional leaders to fulfill its ambitious goals, organizational goals and objectives. And the expansion programs of the companies and tight labor market conditions may combine to create an acute shortfall in executive talent. So if the growing organizations, that should definitely require additional leaders to fulfill its ambitious organizational goals. And the second aspect is early retirements. So even though employees can remain in their jobs for a longer duration, especially in private firms, the top managers are of late quitting the firms early to take up some kind of other lucrative consultancy services. So here in this aspect, early retirements are very frequently and it is taking place in all the organizations. And hence there is a need for succession planning if this situation provides. And the next one is coping with multiple competency requirements. The present day organizations is having a complex network and it is also having a global presence, and they are seeking to fulfill the higher levels of management with executives having multiple competencies. So say for example, companies are now looking for managers who can excel at collaboration and partnering, and they can able to understand vast ambiguities, and they have to deal with global issues, global business issues. So they should also be familiar with all the matters like business startups, mergers and acquisitions, change management, ability to manage new technology. So the managers should be in a position to cope up with all these changes which are happening, and they should be updated contemporary knowledge with the contemporary knowledge, and they have to work in all these situations. And hence there is a need for succession planning because due to all these competency requirements, they should be highly prepared. And the next aspect is poaching. So to deal with leadership scarcity, now organizations, they are trying to attract the managers of their rivals with attractive job offers. So in order to avoid these kind of unnecessary situations, so we should always be prepared by using the succession planning, and in order to avoid all these unnecessary circumstances. Next, we will see about what are all the requisites for successful succession management. The successful succession planning program should have the complete support and patronage of the top management. So that is a very, very prerequisite for a successful succession management. And the second aspect is the management should forecast with maximum possible precision the skill required or the skill requirements for the immediate and the distant future. So here the management should be able to forecast what is the skill that is required for the immediate and the distant future. And the next one is the organization should revise the list of jobs. There should be a proper alignment between the HR strategy and the succession plan. That is also another prerequisite for successful succession management. And the last one is the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the prospective employees must be developed on a sustained basis. So here we have discussed about what are all the requisites for successful succession management, and on the other side there is also the impediments to effective succession management. So these impediments as also should be taken care of by the organizations in order to successfully develop the successor to the organization. So these are some of the impediments to successful or succession planning process. So the first one is lack of criteria for the identification of the successor. So many organizations, they care very little for developing this unambiguous and objective criteria for selecting the potential successor, because this may or may not happen. So this lack of criteria for the identification of the successor is the first impediment to effective succession management. And the second one is presence of traditional replacement systems. So in many organizations, the replacement planning process, it targets specific persons instead of identifying specific positions for succession planning. So this people-oriented succession planning, often it ends up with the identification of a few subordinates by the senior managers to be included in the succession planning. So, and hence they are making use of only the traditional replacement systems. So that is also another impediment to the effective succession management. And the next one is improper diagnosis of development requirements. So often organizations, they make a wrong assessment of the skills requirement of the potential successors. So this should be avoided by the organizations. And the next one is inadequate focus on interpersonal skill requirements. So on many occasions, the organizations, they emphasize more on developing the technical and the competencies, but they will fail to look at the other aspect, which is interpersonal team building skills and things like that. So inadequate focus on interpersonal skill requirements can also be viewed as one of the impediments. And the next one is there is too little importance to lateral mobility. So here quite often the organizations, they consider the vertical mobility of the immediate subordinates to higher positions as the only option available in succession management. And they will not give that much importance to lateral mobility, and this has to be avoided, and they should also try this lateral mobility in order to have a better successful person. And the next one is lack of sufficient and timely sharing of feedback. So the absence of the availability of the feedback about the current performance and future assignments may drive the potential successor out of the organization. So here, when the prospective employees, when they remain ignorant about what their management plans for their future, they may tend to quit the organization in search of better prospects elsewhere. So this is a lack of sufficient and timely sharing of feedback is also considered to be one of the impediment. And the next one is lack of follow-up action. So in many organizations, the succession plans often remain in the plan stage and in paper form. So these organizations, they lack the sustained enthusiasm and motivation required to follow up the plans with necessary actions. So this should also be avoided by the organizations. And the last one is absence of managerial initiative and support. So this is actually a critical prerequisite for the success of any succession planning or any succession management program. And this requires a constant encouragement and support from the top management. So many organizations, they never provide the importance that it deserves for the strategic planning. So this is because the management is concerned more with the immediate future and short-term goals. So it is very, very important for the management to realize the benefits of succession planning or succession management, and it should strive to support this concept on a sustained basis.